Hey, I'm Joe with RevZilla, and today I want to talk to you dirt riders about tires. A new pair of knobbies will give your bike incredible traction and control, but there are plenty of folks that ride old worn out ones a little too long since they think that installing a new set is too gnarly of a job to do themselves. I'm going to show you that replacing a dirt bike tire doesn't require nearly as much swearing and busted knuckles as you think. There are a few reasons to change your dirt bike tires on your own. Doing it yourself can save you a considerable amount of cash over time since you can avoid paying a shop to do them for you. Learning proper techniques means you can change tires more easily and frequently, allowing you to swap out tire types based on the terrain you plan to ride or race in, like sand or mud or rocks, for instance. And lastly, it's a lot easier to repair or replace inner tubes on the trail than to push your bike out with a flat and get it to your mechanic. We're going to use our 2021 KTM 350 EXEF to show you the process on the real wheel. But first things first, let's go over what we need to get the job done. First on the list are appropriately sized new tires, inner tubes, and rim strips. You could typically reuse the old tubes and rim strips, but I like to have new ones on hand in case I accidentally damage them during the installation process. A tire changing stand with a bead breaker does make this job a lot easier, but it's not absolutely necessary. You can certainly get away with the trusty old milk crate. You'll need a tire pump or compressor. Just know that most decent bicycle pumps can handle this job. 3 or more curved tire irons, a couple bead holder tools, valve core removal tool, tire lube or a squirt bottle with some soapy water, and an appropriately sized wrench for your rim lock. Ours is 10 mil. Now we're ready to get started, and the first thing we need to do is to prepare the tire and break the beads. We need to let all of the air out of the inner tube. So use your valve core removal tool to separate the valve core from the stem as well as the valve stem lock nut. You should hear the air escaping and feel the tire pressure drop. And the rim lock is a small device that clamps the tire to the rim to prevent the wheel from spinning inside of the tire. We need to remove the nut from the rim lock and push it down into the tire so we could free the tire from the rim. Now we need to break or unseat the first bead. Beads are parts of the tire that engage with the rim, keeping the tire and wheel securely connected to one another as one unit. Every tire has them on both sides. Unseating each bead from the rim can take some effort. Our tire stand has a bead breaker to make this process a little easier. We're going to start across from the valve stem and rim lock by pushing the first bead down toward the drop center of the rim. Now, if you don't have access to a stand with a bead breaker, use your tire irons to pry the tire away from the interior edge of the rim in several areas until it's entirely unseated. And here's a pro tip. If you're really struggling to break the bead, you can have a friend bring their bike over and use their kickstand as a bead breaker. This trick has saved me trailside quite a few times. When you feel the bead has been released all the way around that side of the tire, flip the wheel over and repeat the process on the other side. Now we're ready to get the tire and tube off of the rim. I like to spray the area between the tire and the rim with some soapy water or apply some tire lube here to make the job go a little smoother. Start levering the first bead over the edge of the rim, beginning a few inches away from the rim lock on the opposite side from the valve stem. Use a few tire irons, taking small bites just a few inches apart, working your way around the tire while pushing the bead down into the drop center opposite from where you're working around the rim. This ensures the tire will provide enough slack to safely lever it off of the rim. Remember, your empty inner tube is still inside of the tire, so avoid puncturing it by ensuring the tire iron is only touching the bead of the tire, not pinching the tube. When the first bead of the tire is completely off the rim, pull the inner tube out, carefully removing the valve stem from the rim. Now remove the rim lock. Now lever the second bead up and over the rim. Once you're about a third of the way around the rim, you can generally just pull the tire off the rest of the way by hand. Clean up your rim with some soap and water and inspect the rim strip. The rim strip is a rubber band that protects your tube from the spoke nipples of the wheel, and just replace it if it's damaged. Loosely reinstall the rim lock. Some bikes may have the rim lock under the rim strip versus going through it. Either method works fine. Once your rim's ready to rock, it's time to get your new tire on there. Thoroughly coat both beads on your new tire with tire lube or soapy water. Start by hooking the first bead behind the rim lock. Leaving your rim lock loose gives you the extra space you need to get the bead behind it. Use your tire irons to continue levering the first bead, working evenly around the rim away from the rim lock until it's completely on the rim. Before we move on to the second bead, we need to put the inner tube back in the tire. If you're reusing your old tube, make sure you remember to reinstall the valve core. This leads us into our next step. Inflate the tube just a little bit until it just starts to take shape. Not too much though. Giving the tube a little shape prevents the tube from getting pinched by the tire iron as we finish the job. Install the valve stem through the rim and work the tube into the tire evenly. Be careful not to twist it. Try to keep it as even and smooth as you can. And now you're ready to get the other bead on. I like to reapply a little more soapy water or tire lube to the second bead before starting. Lever the remaining bead onto the rim, starting opposite of the rim lock. Insert a bead holder or two opposite of the rim lock to keep the tire's bead in the drop center of the rim. And just like when we were unseating the bead, pay special attention to the tips of the tire irons and be sure you're not damaging the inner tube. As you work around the bead, it will become progressively tougher. Just be mindful not to overstretch the bead by forcing it. A torn or damaged bead will result in having to toss your new tire right in the recycle bin. Push the bead down into the drop center to allow for the slack needed to lever the tire on without using too much force. As you near the rim lock, push it down into the inner tube, allowing the bead to slide under it. It pays to be careful here since it is a little bit of a pain to relieve a trapped rim lock when the tire is mounted on top of it. At this point, you're just about done. Ensure the rim lock and valve stem can move freely and are situated properly. You might have to spin the rim inside the tire a little bit to realign a crooked valve stem. This can be a struggle, so adding some more tire lube can help. Inflate the tire until both beads of the new tire are seated on the rim, then lower the pressure to your desired PSI. For most conditions, I like to run around 12 PSI. Higher pressure means less chance for pinch flats, but also less traction, and lower pressure means the opposite. One last pro tip. I actually prefer to remove the valve core and inflate the tire to around 30 to 35 PSI a couple times before reinserting the valve core and setting the tube to my desired PSI. This allows the tube to situate itself in the tire just in case it wasn't sitting properly. Tighten the rim lock to the manufacturer's recommended torque specs and you're all set. Before reinstalling the wheels onto your bike, now is a good time to make sure your wheel bearings, brake pads, chain and sprockets are in good condition. Once you're sure that all of your components are in good shape, throw your wheels back on and go shred with the confidence of someone who can tackle the dreaded dirt bike tire swap on their own. If you have any questions about tires, tubes, tools, or anything else motor related, give our Gear Geeks a shout at 877-792-9455 or send an email to cs@revzilla.com. Thanks for catching us on the lift today. I'm Joe, and I'll see you next time.